Okay, so what you can see here is we're just trying to get the log marked into logs. So we take the tape, run down through here, and that tape is super handy, and I should show you that. I'll show you how that tape works one day. But anyway, we take it and mark out the logs, and again we start marking from the bottom. You'll notice this one had a fence growing through it, so we're dealing with that, we won't start right there at where the butt swell and all that comes down right at the root at the ground area. We won't be taking that much wood. We'll leave about 4 feet in this big chunk that we won't be dealing with because we don't want that metal in the sawmill. So we're just kind of marking down through here, getting all the logs marked out. You can see there I grabbed the tape and I'm kind of resetting right here, and you can see I'm laying my saw over the log right there. This little handy thing keeps it from getting in the junk, and real handy. I don't set it down in the dirt and get dirt all in the cutters and stuff. And what that does, it lets it be real handy. It's already, I'm standing up ready to grab it. I don't have to bend over to grab it. Lots of handy there. But anyway, so I'm marking out this last log, figuring out where it's going to be bucked off at, and you'll see I'm going to mark it, and then I'm going to slide down to the other side because there's a lot less junk to fight with. And of course, when you limb a tree, we always start from the bottom, and then we'll start marking the tree from the bottom, but we'll start removing the logs. You'll see right here from the top. Easing down through here and cutting these logs off, making sure they are where they need to be, and again removing the lightest pieces first and working your way up to the heavy pieces. Here you'll see me set a wedge. I'm a big fan of wedges because they keep you having to do bars out. It just takes a second to set that thing, and then I'm ready to get in here and start easing this thing apart, and you'll see it just drop right out of the way. That wedge will buy you that split second you need to get the bar out of there. So here we are again, bucking these others, getting them ready to go, and just rolling down through there. Again, using a wedge here to make sure that it's not going to bind on us. Again, it doesn't take much, just a quick little set and you're good to go. Now, when we cut this thing, you'll see it. Sometimes a wedge is a little tricky to get out. If they are, I sometimes just leave them. I carry a whole pile of them with me there in the box there or whatever, and it's not worth fighting. I'll go pick it up later. Not the end of the world. You can see here I'm underbucking here. I'm using just the tip. I don't want to get a whole bunch of that bar. Just using what I need. You can see how the tree started to come back towards me. Not a big deal. Now, what we're going to do on this one is I started cutting down, and I'm leaving a piece of wood in there because I don't want it to gator mouth or split and lose all that side of that log. So I relief cut the top so it has somewhere to go, but I'm leaving a hinge right there. And I'm going to drop down and cut the bottom of this thing out, and then I'll come back and I clean that hinge out and let it drop. So anyway, just it leaves it in more control. I'm not in a mess trying to fight with it. It's not going to split the log, and then I can just back cut up through the top of this thing, underbuck right up into that, and it'll open up and disappear. So then we'll walk on down. And again, we're leaving quite a bit of wood on this stump here. You'll see in this clip. We're going to leave that there. Now again, I'm kind of doing a similar thing here. I'm going to pull this thing out. You see I'm just bore cutting right back up in under that, leaving a hinge here, and you'll watch how we end up taking this thing apart so that in a couple different little steps, because we don't want to pinch up. We don't want that stump. Anytime you're dealing with stump, there's a lot of weight there, and it's sometimes hard to read. So we have a tree that's wanting to go one way, a stump that's sometimes wanting to go a different way, and sometimes wanting to go the same way. So we have to be real careful about that, and it's not such a big deal if you just fell the tree off the stump. But when we're dealing with one that's removed and still has a stump on it, and I should probably talk about that a little bit. The reason we're removing these with the stump on them is it's so much easier for the dozer when the stump is on the tree is still on the stump. If I'm trying to push that thing out, it is horribly difficult to get it out that doesn't have a tree. You can see on some of the other videos earlier, when we're pushing that stump out of there, when it starts to go, the tree pulls it the rest of the way. If you don't have a tree on it, there's nothing to pull it the rest of the way out, so it's just a fight. You'll see there, now we've got through the bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and go attack through the top, and again, keeping plenty of distance between ourselves and that tree, because again, lots of things can happen. It can roll, it can move, it can jump, the stump can come at you, the stump can run away from you. Just lots of things to have to read and be ready for, and if you're just not in a dangerous spot, you don't have to worry about it. And I'm just taking the bar there, checking, making sure there's nothing stuck in there and didn't miss anything, because we don't want to forget and miss something. So now I'm just taking little slices so I can get that bar right out real quick, and that thing ready to fall. You'll see it just slip right out. You see the dirt side of that stuff was heavier, so it shot up in the air. And anyway, that's what's going on there. Now I want to talk just a little bit now about some of the cleanup stuff. You see here we're carrying this log out with the excavator. And the reason I like to carry a log out with the excavator or a tractor, you'll see one clip in there of a tractor carrying one, is because it doesn't drag it through the dirt. And now this isn't a muddy site, so it's not going to be sloppy, muddy mess, but still there's going to be a lot of dirt get in those little furrows you can see in the bark there, and it builds up, and then when you start running it through the mill or bucking it a different length later, it's just that much more abrasive on the metal. And anytime we can avoid that, we're just that much better off. So I try to carry what I can, and that way I don't have to fight with it. Now in big production stuff, they don't care. They have a big debarker. They get out there and they knock it down. And we have a little debarker on the LT50 that goes, and it takes the bark and the dirt out right where the blade goes. But our mill has the wide head version, and if it's smaller logs, it won't touch them because it's moved out 6 more inches, so it just doesn't hit it. So what I like to do is just try to keep the wood clean as I can. And if I can keep it clean and just set it up on there, then I don't have to worry about it. So that's what I do. Now I've got a clip in here of skidding one, so you can see some of that, because sometimes where you're at you have to skid it. Carrying is just simply not an option. In the room, or it's too steep or whatever. But you're going to notice here in a second this log starts to, it's very heavy, and it wants to come out. And you can see there's a little bit of dirt in the bucket there, and that gives it a dirty spot, but it also is tricky to get it where it needs to be. And when it gets up there, you'll see it kind of flex a little bit, and it gets hung, and if I let go of that log to get another bite, I'll lose it. So you'll see us bring a tractor in here and hold it with a fork so that it doesn't get lost and come off the trailer. I mean, if it did, it's not the end of the world, but we like to not tear things up best we can. So anytime you have to grab it again, you're getting more dirt and everything else. So here we are, just taking that forks and holding it, and I'll just take the bucket, grab another bite. You can see some dirt was in the bucket, and again, not ideal, but there we go, taking the thumb and just pushing that log right, nesting it right down there where we need it to be. So again, handy to have that machine sitting there to help out. Now the next clip you're going to see here is going to be a skidding a log, and the reason we're skidding now is it fell in between 2 forks of a tree, and we're taking this the winch on the Dozer. It's again 650G John Deere, and the winch is, I'm thinking, a 40,000 pound winch, has 5/8 cable on it, and we hooked this, wrapped it under the backside of the log, dropped the hook down on it so that it won't come loose when it gets loose under tension or whatever. We have it back from the end of the log far enough it won't just fall off. And now we're going to just winch that thing up to the machine. Now what I'm doing, I'm winching it up tight so that it's not dragging in the dirt. You'll notice when this log is being pulled that just the back part of this log is touching the ground. A whole bunch of it's not even on the ground. So that if we're having to skid it, that's the ideal situation. And we could have just pulled it out and dropped it and then bucked it and carried it out, but we're already having it dragging in the dirt. So we'll just finish dragging it in the dirt. And plus I wanted you guys to see how this part works, and you can kind of see, because again, not every situation works to where you can get in there and carry the logs out in a nice clean manner. Sometimes you're going through a narrow section of trees, and skidding's the only option. You can't just carry them out like this big long runway we have here. So but anyway, you'll see us dragging this thing out and just taking our time, and you see this tree has quite a bow in it. It's probably something else we should talk about is how to plan your cuts. Not always do you just stretch the tape down through there and cut at the intervals you want. Sometimes you have to look at that break, and you'll see, find a spot where it's maybe a sharper bend and then another straight stretch. That sharp bend's where you're going to want to make a cut, so you can optimize those straight stretches for logs. Now if you're cutting for firewood, it'll make a bit of difference, but these are going to be milled, and we want to make sure we again optimize all that straight wood we can. So we want to drag this thing up here, and I'll come back up later and bucket. It's not on film, but we'll come back and we'll mark them out and judge them to see where the best places to make the cuts will be, and then we'll do that. But here in a moment you'll start seeing this last tree come into frame, and you start seeing that, you'll notice that we're going to drive pretty close to that last tree, and at the end you'll see us kind of turn a little bit. I'll take the dozer and I'll turn down toward that last tree and drive a little bit further, and then I'll turn the dozer, the front of the machine, uphill, so it pivots around and kicks that winch downhill. And what that'll do is it'll stack that tree nice and tight to the last tree, so it doesn't take up all the path that I need, because you can see I'm driving beside it and I can't get back down through there without getting all into stockpile or into the last tree. So you'll see us here in just a second. You'll see us start to turn a little bit, and there you go, starting to see it now. And I'll drive a little further, and then I'll turn the other direction. You see how it just pivots that winch around, and it drops the tree right there. So I just free spool the winch, and then we'll go in and unhook the tail chain from it, and then you can't pull the tail chain out by hand, so you'll see me here in a second. As soon as it's unhooked and they're clear, then I'll just winch it up in there, and you'll see the log move a little bit as it pulls that big tail chain up out under that log, and then there you can go see it right there, and then that one's done. Now our last bit that we're going to be looking at here is how to pile all the debris, and that's the biggest thing we get into. Before the days of having the excavator, we'd always pile the brush up with a bulldozer. It's just a mess. And you'll notice here, you're always watching the outside corner of the blade. I kind of have you set up so you can see that. That's what you always watch for on a dozer. But you can see it still gets dirt in it. And then if there's a hump and dirt in the middle of the blade where you can't see it, well, you have it and you don't even know it. So you end up piling all this dirt into the brush pile at the base, and air can't suck up into it. So the fire doesn't burn well, it doesn't get hot, and it's starving for oxygen. The pipe doesn't disappear. So what we're doing here is we're taking the dozer and we're piling all the stuff close to the pile. Now, we can take the excavator and in 4,000 little trips going down and get every thumb full of stuff and drive it over and set it on there. If I don't have a dozer on the job, that's what I do. I have a dozer there anyway, and what I like to do is get it close to the pile. You'll see I'll get up here pretty close and I'll just stop. I like to keep enough room for the excavator to drive between the pile of junk that I'm pushing and the pile. The reason for that is the excavator and thumb is very easy to manipulate. You can see it really easy. You don't get a bunch of dirt. And what we're doing is we'll pick that up, shake the dirt out of it, and then stack it in the brush pile. And by doing that, we'll end up not having all this dirt gobbed up in our pile. And when we're ready to light this thing, it'll really go. We won't have a big bunch of dirt to deal with. So I'll take this dozer and push a bunch of different pieces up in there, and there'll be rocks in there and dirt and everything else, none of which wants to be in that dirt, in that brush pile. So we'll take it, we'll push it all up close. The excavator man will go and sort it out, throw it over in the dirt pile, and then later on I'll come back with the dozer and push all of what's left and scatter it one more time. They'll go through it, make sure that something got missed. Then we'll push it, and there's options there depending on location and desire, but in this one we'll spread it out, check it out, and look for big rocks, because they want the big rocks out of there to dress along the creek with, along the side of the road, kind of keep somebody from sliding over into from the driveway into the creek. And we're looking for those, or we'll be hunting for those kinds of things, and then we'll just push the dirt out there and stockpile it. Now you can, if there's not hunting for the rocks, you just stockpile every bit of it, and then in a few months a lot of that little stuff will rot, and if you have bigger stuff, in a couple of years it'll rot in that pile, and then you can go through it. Now we don't have a topsoil screen. If we had a topsoil screen, we'd just pile all of it up in a pile, not worry about it, and run it off with the screen. But we don't have one here, so we're going to sort a little, sort those bigger rocks out of it, and either push it out or stockpile it. So you have those options there. Now you see here, I'm just taking this. Here you can see that tractor on the fork hauling a log out of there that was cut. And again, just we had the help there and the machine, so we'll use it rather than say just keep dragging them all through the dirt. This saves a lot of time, and it keeps the excavator sorting stuff that needs to happen there too. So anyway, just a little explanation of why we're doing what we're doing here, because we end up having if we take a little extra work and a little planning now doing this, then we also don't have to fight it later. And another thing I want to mention too is the location of that pile. You notice it's not close to the stumps where we're going to be. It's not where the trunks of the trees are landing. It's where the tops are landing all the time. Now the benefit of that is you can see the other stumps are pushed up here, and we'll push them around so they can dig the dirt out of them. But the benefit of having the burn pile close to where most of the tops are going to land is don't have to push them very far. And if a treetop lands in a brush pile, it's not the end of the world. If you have a nice big log that you're going to run through the sawmill and it lands over top of a big stump in a brush pile, it'll break it. And you have a bunch of busted up timber that's ended with. But by having this position where it's at, we're not transferring this material very far. You can see it's not moving very far. You're right where it needs to be. And it's out of the way. And then whenever we need to push the next tree down, the excavator doesn't have to go very far to be out of the way. So he's not wasting lots and lots of time tramming in and out of the danger zone to go find safe. Anyway, there's kind of some of the explanations there, and I hope it's helpful, and hopefully it'll help you next time you're. And this is for house clearing, but you may be clearing a field, or you may be clearing for a barn, or it's hard to tell, or just build a road, and all these things hopefully will transfer into what you're needing to do, and hopefully be helpful. Anyway, I'll turn you loose and let you watch the rest of this here. Here's a really good shot of what that kind of looks like. You can see how he's positioned there, and he can just grab what he wants out of that and just swing around and get the nice clean stuff, push everything into that brush pile and keeping all that junk out of it. And kind of see how this push, what it looks like from the dozer's point of view. And kind of have that camera angle a little higher so you can see that and get a view of the machine working while this machine's working. You kind of see how one just feeds the other, and just ends up working like a really good well-oiled machine, so to speak. Anyway, that's about all we have for today, and I sure hope you enjoyed it.